you're right that the internet and access to the internet is so fundamental, especially during times of crisis, because it does not just air the violations within the country, but also outside the country. You remember when the internet was shut during the Gen Z protests on 25th of June, a few other jurisdictions around Kenya also experienced a bit of internet disruption and internet shutdown. Uganda, Burundi, and a few others. And that is just one of the mechanisms to curtail, information getting out to the international community. Why? Because a lot of authoritarian regimes do not want their dirty linen exposed outside. So the more we have access to the internet and access to information, it means that a few other mechanisms and frameworks and the international community is aware of what is happening. And I think that's why a lot of again, authoritarian regimes tend to switch off the internet as and when there's a few, mishaps just to control information out there. So this is one of the things that we are condemning in the strongest terms. I do not want to be a prophet of doom or a prophetess of doom, but that is exactly why we are filing this case, because we, and it has been recorded, you also have records of, different people in government saying that the internet needs to be shut down. And so that's why we are filing this case at this particular point, a couple of months before elections, years before elections, so that we have legal precedents set. By the time we are getting into the electioneering period, at least we have legal backing by that time. So yeah, you're right.
I would like to add the fact that this is a trend-setting moment for Kenya. For countries like Uganda that have done this exercise before, and you find a court of law derailing the whole process until it is overtaken by events, we would like to see Kenya do different. We would like to see the judiciary of Kenya coming up to protect and stand by human rights and protecting its citizens. By sort of starting this trend and showing that the East African region can do better, we are very expectant of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Miriam Beatrice Wanjiru. I work for Paradigm Initiative as the Programs Officer for East Africa. And to put simply, all we are saying is that it is completely and utterly diabolical for a few elements in the Kenyan society to imagine that they can operate outside or above the law. And for our society and for a country such as Kenya that is heavily reliant on access to the internet, shutting down the internet for even a single second is costly from a financial angle, a business angle, but over and above that, it is a direct violation of human rights, because we need to remember that digital rights are human rights. And so what we are saying is that we hope that the judiciary and the courts will be bold to pronounce the illegal shutdown that happened last year was utterly illegal, and that it will set legal precedents, especially as we get into heavy electioneering and campaigning periods in 2026 and elections in 2027. It has also been mentioned that this is a landmark case, and that means that it is first of its kind to be put out in Kenya. And so we are hoping for an equally landmark ruling from the Kenyan courts.
Thank you. I am Patricia Ainembabazi from CEPESA. I do appreciate this joint effort, and I would like to emphasize the fact that we do have guidelines from the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. If we all remember Resolution 530 that speaks to freedoms of expression and having to hold states accountable when it comes to internet shutdowns. We have supported members in the West African region. We have worked in countries like Nigeria, Togo, and Guinea, and we have precedent cases with the ECOWAS court, where we have seen success. We have seen rulings that support the citizens of those countries, and we do hope that the Kenyan government does the good thing and the right thing for the East African region. We do hope for a positive precedent going forward, and once again, we do have precedents from other regions in Africa, as mentioned. The ECOWAS court has pushed out three, Nigeria, Guinea, and Togo, that we can look at and know that there is hope for the continent. Thank you.
I just want to add that when you look at the shutdown which happened last year during the Gen Z protests, the reality is the country lose almost 1.8 billion per hour if that consistent shutdown, especially the total shutdown. And of course the figure is also high during the KCSE or the whole November, like what happened in last year and the year before. So the economic impact of shutdown is so huge to the country. And basically, when the government is saying that it is digital being the main cornerstone of the country, then it is important that that digital remains free, fair, and open to everyone. And that is the fight that we have. And representing content creators and bloggers, in most cases, you realize that the Gen Zs were much affected during that shutdown. And what we know is that that is now dangerous when you're in the darkness without the internet. And of course, what is happening with abductions, so that made it even more dangerous for the young people in this country. So it's our hope that the judiciary will do something in this, and hopefully going forward, we are not going to see this issue again.
So we are informed by our legal counsel that the courts have issued orders barring the government from interfering with the internet until this court case is heard and determined. Basically, the Constitution of Kenya and international instruments guarantee freedom of expression, which is the freedom to receive, seek, and impart information, online and offline. And our argument is that any interference of freedom of expression, online or offline, needs to, number one, be anchored in law. So we need a legal mechanism for such shutdowns. We are also saying that any shutdown should be necessary and proportionate in an open and democratic society, and it must pursue a legitimate aim. Even if the aim is national security or public order, the legitimate aim must be followed, and that any entity or any body that is trying to limit the internet is the one that is now charged under the Constitution to justify that limitation. And we are also urging that the courts will institute judicial oversight for any future occurrence like that. But our position is that the internet, being important for freedom of expression and economic and social rights, should never be shut down. But we are saying that even if it should be shut down, there has to be some legal parameters, and that is what members of the press. In front of you are representatives of 7 organizations that have filed a case challenging internet shutdowns and interruptions in Kenya. I am representing International Commission of Jurists. We have representatives from CIPESA, representatives from Paradigm Initiative, and representatives from Bloggers Association of Kenya. I'll proceed to read the statements alongside my colleague, and then we will answer some questions and give further guidance. 7 organizations have today filed a landmark public interest case challenging unlawful disruption of the internet access in Kenya. The organizations are the International Commission of Jurists, Kenya Section, the Bloggers Association of Kenya, Paradigm Initiative, Kenya Union of Journalists, Katiba Institute, the Law Society of Kenya, in collaboration with collaboration on international ICT policy for East and Southern Africa, also known as CIPESA. This legal action responds to credible evidence of deliberate interference, including internet throttling during the 2024 Gen Z protests and blocking of social media platforms, Telegram during the 2023 and 2024 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Examinations period. The evidence of the internet disruptions for this case was provided by Cloudflare, IODA, the Open Observatory on Network Interference. The restriction of the internet in Kenya on 3 occasions, 2023 and 2024, constitute a blatant violation of Kenya's constitutional rights to freedom of expression, media freedom, access to information, as well as the full realization of economic, social, and cultural rights. The 7 organizations have sued the Communications Authority, the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication, and Digital Economy, as well as 2 telco providers, Safaricom and Airtel. As organizations committed to defending civil freedoms, we condemn the escalating use of digital repression to silence dissent, manipulate information flows, and erode democratic participation. Kenya's obligations under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights as well as our constitution, reinforce the imperative to protect digital rights in Kenya.
Thank you, members of press. I'm Kennedy Kachwanya, representing Blog Association of Kenya. The internet is no longer a luxury, but a critical enabler of political discourse, economic transactions, and even emergency response systems. Any restrictions must satisfy a stringent legal test under Article 24 of the Constitution, which are legally necessary and proportionally standard. I repeat that any restriction must satisfy a stringent legal test under Article 24 of the Constitution of Kenya, which are legality and necessity for the proportionality. So it has to be proportional. If you are going to shut down the internet, it needs to be proportional, and there has to be a basis for doing this. So through this case, the 7 organizations are seeking a judicial declaration that internet shutdowns without due process are unconstitutional abuse of the state's power, alongside the court-ordered mechanism to ensure that oversight, transparency, and accountability in digital governance in Kenya. The outcome of this case will have far-reaching implications for millions of Kenyans who rely on important connectivity for their living and civic engagement. We call upon civil society, media partners, and the international community to amplify the crucial fight for the digital rights as the cornerstone of Kenyan democracy going forward. Thank you.